Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. I'm your host, Ken. I'm sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a very big show, so we have a full panel this week. Sitting to the right of me, you know him from the comics blog, it's the Bry Guy Signal.
I'm back, bitches!
And joining him, the man of 1,001 aliases, the Clayface Killer, John the Phenomenon, or dare we say, John Guy Signal? It's Bry Guy's brother, John.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining the show. Hashtag it up with us, folks. ODPHEE. We want you to join the conversation because, man, do we have some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there's some stuff.
Yeah, the original kickoff that we were going to do was Daredevil Season 3, and we were really amped up to talk about it. But then some...
We still are.
We're going to get into that a little later in the show, but something decided to just rain on the parade.
Someone did.
You know, this was just absolutely wild news. Pat, do you want to kick us off with it?
Yeah, so we got the surprising news right either the day it dropped or the day Season 3 of Daredevil dropped on Netflix. Netflix came out and announced Luke Cage has been canceled after 2 seasons. And if I'm not mistaken, it was like exactly a week after they announced Iron Fist was canceled.
It was 1 week. If you listen to last week's show, we talked about Iron Fist getting canceled and how that was kind of surprising. To a degree, maybe not so much, because out of all the Netflix Defender shows, Iron Fist was probably the one that was least received.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, putting it mildly. But Season 2 was a definite upgrade, and I'm pretty sure they thought they were coming back for a Season 3 of how they left Iron Fist. Same thing with Luke Cage. I'm going to pass this around the panel for reactions, starting with our newest guest. John, what's your thoughts on Luke Cage getting canceled?
It was surprising. I will say I never watched the second season, not from any negative reason, just never got around to it. I loved the first season, thought it was great. But to see it canceled was shocking because it definitely was up there as one of the better shows.
Mm-hmm. Bri?
I was pretty shocked also with it. I feel like I know why it's happening. Like, I don't think it's fully canceled, but I think we'll get into that later. I was shocked by it because, like, I'm with Ken. It's like, I got it. Iron Fist wasn't as well received, so it was like, okay, I'm not shocked by that one. Mm-hmm. But when Luke Cage was very well received by both audiences and critics, and it's, like, canceled, in quotes, I was like, wow, really? Only after 2 seasons?
Yeah. No, I'm definitely surprised by it, especially because you look at the reception it got and the popularity it had. It extended beyond your casual comic book fans in that, you know, the folks who watch the movies, watch the TV shows, read the comics. There was a lot of, like, I knew a lot of people who, like, weren't necessarily the biggest comic book fans. They saw an occasional movie, but they didn't go to all of them. But this was one that, like, they watched. They were amped up for. So that was a little surprising, to say the least.
To say this was a shock is an understatement. Luke Cage Season 1 is arguably one of the best shows they've done in a comic book genre.
Yeah.
Without question. And you want to argue about it on Facebook? It's Twitter, social media, we can do this. Luke Cage is up there. I will say it's right behind Daredevil Season 1 of quality shows that have came out from the Marvel Netflix MCU. And just to see how it went from, and it just kind of really exploded and really brought Luke Cage into, I would say, a lot more mainstream homes.
Yeah.
That people that didn't really know who he was, a lot of times, previously to the Michael Bendis run, or Brian Michael Bendis run, rather, on Avengers, Luke Cage was kind of always in the background and always kind of, him and Iron Fist both were kind of, I don't want to say C-level characters, but they were always kind of not really your heavy hitters. And I mean, they've had some stints where, I mean, Luke Cage is substituted on the Fantastic Four, I believe, for like a very brief stretch of time. He's always kind of had his own thing going. But it was almost when they became Avengers, they really exploded in their popularity.
That, and also they had to kind of change Luke Cage's outfit around.
Yeah.
So he no longer looked like a disco guy.
Oh, yeah. He definitely evolved from the times from where he started to where he is now. And he was a mainstay on the Avengers. Iron Fist to a lesser degree, but they're always coinciding. So to see the Luke Cage after Season 1 was such a hit with fans and critics alike, and it just was such a breath of fresh air to the MCU. And then Season 2 came, and maybe it wasn't as well received, but you have to look at the villain dynamic, and we can compare notes with that. The Season 2 villain was not the strongest of villains per se, but it was still a quality season.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anything you can take away from it. So to see it get canceled is definitely a shock, and not a good one. I mean, there was a lot of social media
Yeah, there was a lot of people not happy about it.
Yeah, people are chattering up. I mean, our favorite MMA fighter, the common man Vince Iatoli, was chiming in and was season 1 was GOAT standard television to me. And he's like, I will definitely argue with people on Instagram about this if they want to get into it. Cottonmouth was such a tremendous character, redemption story, and just the soundtrack. Season 2 is good as well. This is just a travesty. We might be having some guest blogs about this because this is, I agree with him, this is a complete travesty. I don't understand how this gets canceled unless you look at kind of a broader picture, and this is, I think, we're going to kind of spread into. Mm-hmm. Iron Fist is canceled. Mm-hmm. Luke Cage is canceled.
Yep.
They decided to announce this on the day that Daredevil Season 3 came out.
Uh-huh.
For Luke Cage, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why would you announce a cancellation of one of the most popular shows you have involving your universe on the day that Season 3 comes out of Daredevil?
Well, the only thing I can think is maybe the person who made the decision to make the announcement was hoping that everyone would be watching Daredevil Season 3 and binge watching it, so they would miss out on it and it would somehow get buried. But there again, they underestimated the internet and social media where nobody missed it.
It's also called multitasking. We are watching our news feeds while we are binge watching the awesomeness of Daredevil Season 3.
This is true.
Exactly. It's the one thing about binge watching TV
We're
shows.
nerds. Nothing gets past us.
I mean, it's a thing for those of you who have taken reporting classes or studied anything about reporting news. You know, if something, no matter what world it's in, TV, sports, real politics, whatever, if something gets announced on like a Friday or going in the weekend, you're hoping it's getting buried so that nobody's talking about it. Mm-hmm. With Daredevil Season 3 came down on what day was it? Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They were hoping it was going to get buried, but this is Luke Cage. This extends far beyond your diehard Marvel fans, your folks like us who see all the movies, see all of this, all of that. Like, this is for casuals.
Even if you dropped, I say, even Iron Fist Season 2, I don't think if it hadn't already been canceled, like after Season 2 of Iron Fist, like, you know, they canceled it. I feel like if you even dropped that on Friday when Daredevil got released, it still would have a pretty decent.
There'd be some reaction to it, but not nearly to the degree that Luke Cage got canceled. I mean, the thing with Netflix shows getting canceled is you can see a typical pattern with Netflix shows that got canceled. It shows that they put out, there was a little fanfare behind it, but then either it just didn't do well enough, or there was almost no social media push to watch the show, and you can kind of watch it. I mean, you can go back in the history of Netflix shows and look at stuff. Iron Fist was fairly well published and promoted socially, and the same with Luke Cage. I think it was just a surprise for people because you've had these Marvel Netflix shows come out and the reception's been mixed or positive or what have you. It's been all over the spectrum. But the thing with Netflix is Netflix has never put out the viewer ratings or how many people have watched this, how many people have streamed this. So people are always kind of figuring, okay, it's Marvel. People go watch it. People love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. This is just such a shock. And it's, like I say, it's a complete travesty. Because especially with these shows, you know the fan base is there.
Yeah.
It's not hidden or anything. It's
no, and especially with how the seasons were left off. Mm-hmm. I think everybody was assuming everybody was coming back for a Season 3.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the fact you're not, okay, that's fine. We get it. Sometimes this happens where you have the cliffhanger endings. But to the fact that you decide to drop this news on when your brand new season comes out for Daredevil, I think is more telling than anything, because the only thing I can relate this to is when DC's movie division decided to announce Ezra Miller was going to be the new Flash.
Yep.
On the day the CW announced the Flash's premiere ratings were like the highest, I think, in their network's history at that time.
Yeah.
So why would you overshadow your own product unless, of course, and this is my own unofficial ODPH opinion,
we don't know anything.
We don't know anything.
We're Jon Snow.
Yes.
This is true.
Mm-hmm. They're trying to get rid of the MCU on Netflix.
It could be.
Yeah.
This is the only thing I could think of. Why would you bury I mean, it's one thing to get rid of cancel a show. I get it. But to bury a premiere of one of the most highly anticipated shows on your service. And Daredevil is. I mean, you could take the comic factor out of it.
Sure.
You're trying to tell me that the word of mouth of Daredevil alone wasn't enough to. It's one of the most anticipated shows of the season.
Yeah.
Of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're burying that because you're trying to like slide this under the radar. This is not going to fly.
No, I mean the only thing I can think is, like you said, the way I kind of look at it is I think this is a little backroom, messy, behind the scenes stuff that's kind of spilling out into public. And then like we said, we don't know anything. We're entirely guessing. But the thing you got to remember is in less than a year, I don't know the exact datage because it's all got to get approved. But in less than a year, Netflix and Disney will be in direct competition with each other.
Correct.
In that Disney will have its own streaming service. So, you're canceling these shows left, right, and center. Netflix is going to be going, okay, well, we're giving you a lot, we're paying a lot of money for this stuff. We're seeing great returns on this, and you're pulling this from us now? This is our own way of getting back at you.
It's puzzling in that aspect. But, I mean, you got to mention, like you said, you mentioned, Disney is having its own streaming service coming, and obviously...
Plus, the other thing is when they acquire Fox, Fox does have a rather sizable stake in Hulu. So when Disney finally acquires Fox, they get Fox's percentage of Hulu.
And one thing I'm thinking with this, too, is, okay, if you're going to move the Netflix shows or the Marvel shows off Netflix, they got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to the Disney streaming service.
No, because early word, and like we said before, nothing is officially... The only thing announced for the Disney streaming service is they're doing another season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. That's it.
It's like, okay, honey, what do you want to watch? We have Tangled, we have Frozen. Oh, do you want to watch The Punisher?
Right, because so early word I've been reading online is that the Disney streaming service, in terms of rating, and the example I read was movie ratings, you will see stuff that's rated, G, up to PG-13. If you go watch Daredevil season 3, every episode starts with a TVMA rating.
Correct.
Yeah, but
So if Disney does anything Marvel in the future, odds are it's going to end up on Hulu.
And I was going to say, I think what they're doing with the Disney one is it's meant to be you can all watch the Star Wars movies. Because I'm pretty sure that's one of the big demographics they're trying to get for their
without
streaming
question.
services. We want the Star Wars fans.
Right.
So this kind of segues to where I think I was going to say was, what do you think the future holds for the Netflix MCU universe? Like I said, me personally, I think they're done. Obviously, Jessica Jones season 3, I believe, is still on the books for Netflix. I know Punisher season 2 is.
Punisher season 2 is done.
Yes.
Like it's filmed and in the can.
So after those two series come out, and like I said, Jessica Jones is still up in the air, but I'm pretty sure that's still coming out. Then I think they're going to move, and I think the right move is to move them to Hulu.
My guess is if the shows are filmed and done contractually, they are obligated to show them because because I get the feeling if you're under contract for a show getting filmed and then getting released, and then you go, oh, we're not going to release it, then you're just asking for the lawyers to get involved, and
Correct.
then it's going to get messy.
That's a lot of money to have sunk into a project. It's like, you can't share that, by the way.
That's why you see, like we said before, the Disney Fox deal, that's why you see Fox greenlighting a crap ton of movies, is that because anything they get into production, Disney has to put out no matter when the deal goes through.
Yeah, and it just makes sense that if you're going to move them to Hulu, which for me, that makes perfect sense.
My only complaint is you're going to have commercials, but
But you know what? That's a small price to pay if you keep intact. If you're going to keep intact your Netflix universe, or you want to just call it the Defenders universe, because I think that'll be a lot easier.
Yeah,
that's...
So if you're going to keep your Defenders universe, because obviously after Daredevil came out, and unless they're planning on canceling that, which
there's no way,
which I can't see that happening, at least not just yet. I think that they still got a couple more seasons they could really go if they really want to push the season or series through. I don't see that going anywhere. Jessica Jones is up in the air, but she is very tied to Luke Cage in the comics, without going spoilery on that. So that being said, you really are, unless you're going to have Daredevil be the standalone, you're either going to A, reshuffle the deck with your Defenders universe,
right,
or B, bring them over to a new streaming service a la Hulu and go, okay, we're going to continue where we left off. Or we're just going to retcon it somewhat.
I don't think there's any way they can retcon it.
Well, no, but I mean the endings of Iron Fist season 2 and Luke Cage season 2.
Gotcha.
Because any way you bring those guys back, you have to explain, hey, what happened?
Yeah.
And how do you do that without doing a new show? Unless you're going to try making it a digital comic and kind of write it in that way, which I could see, but then again, you kind of run into the problem of, do people really gravitate from TV to comic to TV? I mean, unless you're comic geeks like we are.
And even then, I think it's a little annoying when you have to like get backstory from another source that's not in the TV, like in the like not in the show. Like that was like to give an example, Alien Covenant. People are like, oh, if you read the novelization of the movie, Alien Covenant, the movie makes so much more sense. And it's like, okay, I shouldn't have to read a book to understand what happened in the movie.
Right, and I think that kind of just coincides
and this
with
is me as the comics blogger. Like, I don't feel like I have to go read a comic and then go back to the show just so I understand where everyone's at.
So, John, let me ask you this. If you're bringing the shows over to Hulu, do you bring them in as intact, or do you pair them together, or what would be your plan of attack on that?
It's a tough call without knowing. I mean, as it stands, Luke Cage and Iron Fist being done, you could potentially do some type of Heroes for Hire combination, because I would say Iron Fist, at least for me, has always tended to do well as like a supporting character. Like, I liked him in Defenders. His own show seemed to suffer. That if maybe they wanted to take this opportunity to try and combine them somehow, I don't know with those cliffhangers what your solution is going to be to do it, but that's a possibility. And then with it still being up in the air, what happens with Punisher, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, like, you don't know how complete the universe they're getting.
Brian, what's your take on that?
I would say this is I agree with John. That's a very good way to segue into a Heroes for Hire show, which I would love, because, I mean, I love the one episode in Luke Cage Season 2 when Iron Fist does team up with Luke Cage. Like, I love that episode, and it was fun to once again see, as you put it, it was great to see Iron Fist doing good, because it's like he was a great supporting character in that episode. And it's just funny, like, the dynamics of Luke and Danny Rand, like, you wouldn't think these guys would get along.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to see the end of the characters themselves. Know what fashion they come back in, to be determined. You know, I've read a couple things. Don't necessarily rule out the Heroes for Hire thing. That could very well happen. It's just a matter of where, because you got a lot of moving pieces. But I'd like to see him come back in some capacity.
Like, one way I could see it, should have said this before you talked, Josh, I confused my sentence. You could do like almost Heroes for Hire and then branch off to go back to your separate shows. Yeah. Like, that's how you can transition it over to the new stuff, then you break off again.
It's a good possibility. I mean, I think if you're going to do an even money bet on some way it's going to happen, I think you're going to see a Heroes for Hire show in some capacity. Whether it's on Hulu, I mean, I cannot see it going to ABC or network TV.
No.
I really just don't see that happening.
No, just the way they write it and the how graphic it is, I'll say. It wouldn't work for network television.
No, I don't think it would. So I think you have to keep it on a streaming service. I think you definitely are going to bring them back as the Heroes for Hire and let them go. And I think if that show really takes off, I think, you can definitely split them up again if that's what you want to do. Or if you just do, I almost want to say you do like the old school limited series.
Right.
Just treat like 5 episodes and even title it under Marvel Comics Presents, which, if you don't know, that isn't a comic book I believe they're actually bringing back, which is just a bunch of short stories of different characters put together in one issue, and every issue is the continuation of said story. If you do that under that banner, I think that could work a lot. What I would also like to see, and this had better happen if it goes to streaming service, is a Daughters of the Dragon series. Even if it's only 6 episodes, I would hope it gets a full season. I think, if anything, they definitely deserve it. Colleen Wing and Misty Knight deserve their own show, without question. And to see if this doesn't happen, I'm going to be really mad. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be really mad about this, because they definitely deserve their shows. And if they can happen, like I said, I'm not sure what goes on with Jessica Jones after season 3. I really don't. Like, I could see her almost getting mixed into the Heroes for Hire group as well. Just because, to my knowledge, she doesn't have a deep rogues gallery. And it's tough when you don't have a deep one. I would have thought Typhoid Mary from Iron Fist would have been a perfect foil for her moving forward. They might still do that. Who knows? But I think if you do that, and the overall consensus is, if you move them to Hulu, you can definitely rebuild your Defenders universe there. It would work. It just depends on how much they really want to push that universe. or if they want to try bringing some new heroes like Moon Knight or Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are some possibilities if they want to go there. But overall, I think it was just a messy way to end the MCU with Netflix if this is going to be the end. Now, we haven't heard anything official yet, but moving forward, it's going to be something we're going to watch. We're very hopeful that Luke Cage comes back and Iron Fist 2. And if they got to do it as Heroes for Hire on a streaming service, let's go from there. But what's your thoughts on this whole ordeal? Are you happy with Luke Cage and Iron Fist getting canceled? Are you happy on the way it went down? Or what do you think is the next step for the MCU moving forward with the Defenders universe? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Seattle, a local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and we are talking now Netflix Defenders Universe, but we're going to talk good instead of some bad. Because obviously the last segment, there's a lot we had to get off our chests about this. But there was one great thing that came out this weekend involving the Defenders Universe, Daredevil Season 3.
Holy crap.
So I'm going to pass this around the panel. Pat, starting with Pat, what was your thoughts on Season 3?
Masterpiece. Like, that's all I got. I can't put anything else to words for how great it was.
Loved it. Like everything about it was just well done. Characters were awesome.
I loved it. It was so brutal and dark. I loved it. And it was so good. It was so good to the comic, the source material itself, and that's what I also loved about it.
You know, when you hear about iconic stories getting brought to movies or television or even animated film, there is a little bit of trepidation, I guess, if you will, if I can use that word. And when Born Again was mentioned, and like I said, I've been talking about it for a while, that they had to do it. If you're going to do Daredevil, you have to do Born Again.
Yeah.
When they went for it, we saw Kingpin, we saw Bullseye. I was like, okay, can this be good? No. It was great. It was almost a perfect adaptation to a degree, modified a little bit here and there.
Sure.
What you have to do.
Yes, what you have to do, which I said I'm not mad about, but to say about how flawless that this was, just, I mean, everything from top to bottom was just incredible about it. The pacing of the episodes, because sometimes you get those filler episodes, and you're like, all right, yeah. No, they had enough going on, and when we started with episode 1 to where you get to episode 9, and now you're starting to get the slow burn payoff of everything that Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk was doing.
Yeah.
Just sheer masterpiece. I mean, this is why we as fans are so adamant about the Defenders universe.
Yep.
Because we know how good it can be, and we know how bad it could be, but now Daredevil Season 3 has shown how amazing it can be.
Yeah.
So going into it, I mean, you just got to take a look. Vincent D'Onofrio, like I said, they got to get him more involved in the MCU.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I say like how perfect casting that I was so happy when they said he was coming back for Season 3 because he is Kingpin Wilson Fisk. Like he plays it so well.
Oh yeah, without question. I mean, especially with dealing with the source material, because if Daredevil, the blind lawyer who adapts to get powers after a radioactive spill, his senses are heightened, so he has the radar sense, and he's just dedicated himself to becoming a vigilante. And obviously, Season 1, he took down the Kingpin. Season 2, Wilson Fisk laid back a little bit and was kind of plotting his moves. And Season 3, obviously, with Born Again, which is pretty much the destruction of everything that is Matt Murdock on every level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, we were guessing that's where they were going to go with Season 3 after Season 2, and it was like, that was the rumor going around was, okay, it's going to be Born Again. And then at the end of Defenders, how the last scene with Matt ended, you're like, okay, they're doing Born Again. That's what we're expecting, and they delivered it.
Right, and if season 1 showed you how much you should fear Kingpin and Wilson Fisk, like you should really not cross this guy. That like this is the guy your parents warn you about. Like, hey, don't mess with this guy. This guy will absolutely mess you up. If that did anything, season 3 proved how wrong your thoughts were in the worst way humanly possible.
Yeah, it just showed. I mean, just to the extent of the drama of it, and just like how intricate his plan was. That basically he was taken down, but he still was in charge, and he still was the one pulling the strings behind everything. I
mean, it's like you think of the old adage, you may think you have me beat, but I'm 4 steps ahead of you.
Yeah, and to the letter, he was. I mean, that's the scariest thing about it, that he was just so on top of his game. And let's start breaking down the whole series. We are going to be talking spoilers, so if you haven't seen Daredevil Season 3...
What the heck is wrong with you?
What did you do all weekend?
Well, they're probably...
Apart from watch the Bills lose. But that's for the sports channel.
Oh, that is. And we're going to be having words on the next break, my friend.
So stay tuned for that.
Yes, because Bright Guy Signal might not be back next segment. Either way, we're going to be talking spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Let's break it down. So everything from episode 1, where they take the FBI agent, Agent Nadeem.
Yes.
And how he suddenly gets the break of his lifetime after he's had some financial issues.
Yeah.
That he finally gets to work his way to bring in Wilson Fisk to, working with the state to give him, illegal crime families, and he's getting all this information. He's rising up the ranks. He's getting, and it's just like it's almost too good to be true.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there was one point I know when Agent Nadeem finally starts learning like how much Fisk is pulling the strings and how he has his fingers in everything. Like, he orchestrated Nadeem getting the quote unquote promotion and getting the assignment and this, that. And I'm like, did he give the family member cancer too, just to like further orchestrate this thing? Because like at this point, with as much as he's had his fingers in the cookie jar, it would not surprise me.
Yeah, but at the very least, he denied her health insurance, and that set this entire plan in motion.
Yeah, that like he could have paid off a doctor to go, oh hey, give him a medicine, but a medicine that solves like a common head cold.
Yeah, it was just so intricate of how detailed his plan was.
It was absurd because like you get to the plot twist where he, Agent Nadeem is finally like, all right, I have an idea what's going on. I'm gonna go talk about this. I'm gonna talk about this on the record with my superiors, which is something you should do. And it's like, and then you just get the plot twist of his boss shoots, I think it was her boss, in the middle of the room. And I'm like, what in the bleep just happened? Yeah. Like, that was a plot twist of all plot twists I haven't seen in a while.
And it so well came out of left field. Like, you had no idea. Like, it all seemed to be going good. Like, yes, he's finally getting a handle on Fisk, like getting out on top. And never mind.
Yeah. Just when he thinks he's going to get 1 inch of like, breathing room, Fisk just steps right on his neck.
JK, not getting it.
Yeah. And it's just how detailed he gets, because he even fakes his own stabbing in prison to get the whole meeting set up.
And it's so believable when because like you first see the scene and he gets stabbed in prison. Okay, it's Wilson Fisk. He's Kingpin. He's not well liked in a good portion of the criminal underworld. That's to be expected. I'm pretty sure it's been done in the comics at certain points as well.
I believe so.
That's why usually he ends up in prison in the comics. He's almost got to be in solitary confinement by himself because he's going to get shanked on a secondly basis. So for somebody to like, oh, hey, I'll spot you while you're bench pressing weights. Okay, that makes sense. Anyone who doesn't lift weights, when he's bench pressing, you typically need to have a spotter. So, okay, guy's going to spot him and shank. What? Okay, that makes sense. Oh, no, he paid the guy off to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and just as they spiral from there and you see Nadeem is working his way up the ranks and Fisk is getting more and more preferred treatment to rebuild his empire, you find out Matt Murdock has been secretly back since the end of Defenders. Yeah. And just pretty much wants to work in the shadows. And slowly
Matt Murdock is dead.
Yeah, he's just
that line. Just it's like I'd rather die as the devil than live as Matt Murdock. It's like
he's just convinced that this is his mission and he just needs to be Daredevil 24/7. Yep. And it just goes to show just how great Charlie Cox is as Daredevil, because you can see how he's just mentally, I don't want to say he's mentally damaged from obviously what happened with the Defenders, but he's now become so darkly obsessed with taking out Wilson Fisk.
And we were talking about this on the way over. it really comes down to more. It's like his spiritual faith has been broken.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yes.
he is the way, die as the devil.
I got the same vibe off of it, and I got the same vibe. I forget what episode it's in, but it's in the latter half of the season where he's talking with Foggy, and Foggy's like basically trying to convince him, no, we need to arrest him and put him in prison.
Oh,
They're gonna put him in a dark hole, blah blah blah. Like he's giving the spiritual high road speech.
Yep.
And Matt comes back and goes, no. At some point, you need to realize that there are just some people too powerful in this world to be locked up, that they are literally above the law. And that's not coming from just his train of thought. That's his experience. That okay, I took this guy down. He was arrested, and he still got out.
Yep.
And that's the point of Born Again is like, by the end of the season, not to jump the gun, like we'll get more details on, that's where he is. Like at the end of the season, he realizes, okay, this is still my mission. God still has a plan for me to carry out this mission to make Hell's Kitchen better.
Yeah, it shows. I mean, Daredevil's one of his biggest strengths is his faith, and then he relies on that, especially when he is down in this very dark place to pull himself out of. Because as the season goes on, you start seeing that Fisk is just tightening his grip on the city, and he's gotten so many players involved, even to Foggy's parents.
Yeah, what, holy crap. I mean, he pulls the crap that, okay, they introduce Foggy's parents, and you meet Foggy's parents at the what was it, like a deli?
Deli,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
It was the deli, and
There's nice little people.
yeah,
like,
mom and pop deli. They were hoping Foggy'd take it over, but really he wanted to go off and be a lawyer. Okay, cool. So they give it to the son while they get in some financial issues. He takes out a loan. Loan gets bought out by a company that just happens to be owned by Wilson Fisk. And, like, the level of just I think Karen said it at one point. She was trying to plan out things with Foggy, or Foggy was trying to plan out stuff with her, and she just goes, "No, you can't plan things out with Wilson Fisk, because the instant you say them, he will have already thought of them and have a plan for it."
Yeah, it just shows how detailed he is. And I mean, I'll even go on record. I'll say he's the best villain that we have seen in the MCU
Yes,
by far.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can argue Loki. You can argue Loki.
You can argue Loki, but we have yet to see a villain worm his way in and weasel his way into an organization like the FBI, and literally have the entire New York division of the FBI at his beck and call.
Yep.
I was gonna say Thanos don't have that in the Avengers.
No,
he doesn't.
you don't see Thanos or Loki or anybody like taking over the Nova Corps and having the Nova Corps at their beck and call.
Yeah, it's like Loki had a stick to make people do his bidding.
Right.
Fisk has money and his influence.
Oh, so he literally
that is it.
There's the one scene where he's in the room with the mob bosses, and it's like they're like, "Oh, what are you offering?" "Oh, I'm offering protection, basically a get out of jail free card. You can do whatever the heck you want, and the government's going to turn the other way because the New York Federal FBI is under my thumb, and they'll do what I tell them to."
Yeah, it's just so intricate. Like I say, I know I keep saying that, but just to see the detail. I mean, kudos to the writers on this.
It was a lot of detail that, like, I can think of some of it. There was like the stuff with Foggy's parents, I never would have in a million years thought of.
I didn't even, it didn't even register at first. Like, I was sitting there, and then when they finally did, I was like, whoa, like, I should have saw it, but that was so like hidden.
Because you think about it, of course, in the season, Foggy is fed up and frustrated with the gentleman running for re-election at the DA. And it's too late for him to submit his name on the ballot. Oh, well, I'll run a write-in campaign. Okay, well, then he starts actually getting traction.
Yeah,
like on the spot viral marketing. Like, I think there's one point where the video gets taken of him at the some police dinner banquet thing, and it gets viewed, and Foggy's girlfriend says, "Oh, it got 100,000 views in 24 hours."
Yeah.
It went viral. So he's gaining traction, and then all of a sudden he's like, you got to realize by the end of the season, Wilson Fisk was like one breath away of having control of the DA's office.
Yeah, it was just scary to see how far he was getting, and he did have an amazing ally for most of the season.
Yeah,
Wilson Bethel as Bullseye.
That was awesome.
I tell you what, if you want to intro a character and really show what makes him tick, this was something, because they never really touched upon Bullseye's origin in the comics. It was always alluded to about his Little League pitching was the first time he killed somebody, and it was something involved in that. But they never really said. It was almost like how the Joker was in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, that whole story with the Little League pitching, the Little League coach getting killed, I was like, oh wow. I think we've all seen situations like that where you're out in public and like there's a kid having a temper tantrum, and they throw something. I'm like, okay, that's kid's frustrated. He didn't want to get taken out of the baseball game. Every kid in sports is like that. And then he throws the ball, it pings off the thing, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. And then I'm like, wait, he died?
Yeah. But that was something that was always rumored in the comics, but they never have ever addressed in the
Right.
616 universe his origin. It's always just been really in mystery. Just other than that he is just like a walking force of nature that is just lives to kill, and that's how he is. And to see how he was, I mean, the minute that he was trying to save Fisk from the assassination attempt,
as soon as he came on, Fisk is in the SUV, waiting or whatever. As soon as those bodies started dropping, I'm like, well, I know who this is. Because I knew, it had been announced he's in the show, and as soon as they just showed his silhouette, I'm like, well, I know that's who that is.
Yeah, and they played it perfectly because they really didn't go into what his abilities are, which...
No, I remember getting to the end of the season, I was like, wait, did they really get into what he does?
No, they just never touched upon it. They always said, "Oh, well, it just,"
which is awesome.
Yeah, his bullets just ricochet for no reason. No,
well, it's not just his bullets; it's everything.
Oh, it's everything. But it's just his first token. It was just kind of well, bullets are ricocheting and hitting their targets. How are they doing it?
There was one point I was expecting him to walk into a restaurant, grab a coaster, throw it, bounce it off of a vase, and it hit somebody in the head.
Well, I mean, in comparison to the
embed itself in their head.
Yeah.
And in comparison to the whole Colin Farrell bullseye, where he's killing people with corn nuts.
Yeah.
On an airplane. I mean, this was the true version of Bullseye because you see how fractured he is mentally, and just how disturbed.
So he's so fractured mentally that he has to revert to recordings from his childhood with a therapist to almost reset himself or go back to square one. All right, you see him a couple times where Wilson Fisk goes, I forget what exactly he said, but he goes, there are times where I just get so frustrated I let out a feral scream.
Oh yeah.
And he does it a couple times, but it's almost not enough that I've got to sit here and listen to these recordings to really go, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, and once they start peeling into the layers of the character, I mean, that's when you don't feel sympathetic for him at all.
Oh, no.
But you just go I see where he's coming from, and I can now I understand why this character is as messed up as he is.
Yep.
And just to see even going to the New York Bulletin massacre, which I mean was just brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the most brutal scenes I think I've seen in any comic book. I mean, any action film you won't even put.
It's not as brutal in terms of stuff I've seen. I would say the certain scene from Kingsman 1 would be a little more brutal.
Yeah.
But no, in terms of something on essentially television, most brutal thing I've ever seen.
I mean, it's up there. But it just goes to show and how the character is because he's smiling during it. And you see how just absolutely demented he is.
Yeah.
But you understand from his background because they finally have established it. Because in the comics, I mean, he's always just been nuts, to put it mildly. But you see, in the Dark Avengers when he was on there. I mean, there's some great story when they're almost pulling a Thunderbolts and they're pulling fake. Or bad guys are being the fake Avengers, and he's dressing up as Hawkeye.
Oh, yeah.
And you see, there's some great writing in there. I recommend reading the Dark Avengers when Bullseye is in it and just hearing how he is. This was probably the closest to it because this is where he feels normal, and it's just scary to see how he's doing that because I mean he is just listening to Wilson Fisk every word.
Yep.
Until he finds out that Fisk was the reason. That he killed his quote unquote North Star of. And to go in that mess, I mean, that's just another messy situation, but that just pushes him over the edge to where you get the final scene of the three-way dance, so to speak, in one of the more brutal fights that they've had. And I'm kind of surprised because the action for Daredevil was way better than Iron Fist was, and I would thought that would have been the other way around.
Yeah.
Because Iron Fist is more martial arts based and it's more...
I'm just surprised they beat the hallway scene from season 1.
Oh my God, the prison scene?
Holy crap.
10 minutes, episode 4.
Yeah.
See, I personally like the hallway scene in season 2 more. Because I liked it when he gets the chain out and his his one hand's just got the gun duct tape over it, and he has the chain in the other hand.
I like that, but what I liked about this even more, there were several times I thought it was done, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, I meant season. I preferred season 2's over season 1's. This was better because I agree with you. It's it just keeps going on.
You watch the episode. There are several moments where you're like, okay, no, it's done, and then it keeps going and going and going, and then you get to the part where they're in, I don't know what room it is, but they're close to the exit, and you start to see the cons fighting the guards, and they're in riot gear. And like right as they go to rush out the door, one of the cons like football tackles a guard into the wall, takes out a shiv and just starts stabbing him in the neck repeatedly. And at this point, I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah. I had one issue with that scene though.
Yeah.
Okay, what was he drugged with? He was injected with something, and I never saw the ramifications of it.
Like, it didn't seem to affect him
at all.
Yeah, he still held his own, like took down people. Like I'm like.
He just stumbled around a little.
I think it affected him, but he just fought it. I think he fought it off with like whatever for as long as because the thing you got to remember, he had help to get out of there, got into the taxi, and then it was daylight when he got into that taxi, and he then passed the out for like 7 hours.
Yeah, okay, maybe it finally kicked in then, but I'm just like,
I think it was just adrenaline and sheer force of will kicking in that finally when he got out, he was like, all right, I'm good. Good night.
And then he wakes up in the taxi that goes in the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, that was another thing. Like I said, there wasn't a lot that I didn't like about this season, but he also disappeared a lot. Like he'd had like near-death experiences,
and just sort of like, they pulled the taxi up, and somehow he made it out. Like it just,
somehow I was like, hey, I'm all right. I'm just gonna hang out here in the basement.
One of my few complaints that I had, and this is just like more comedic. Like, what kind of name is Poindexter?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that is just like I'm like they're like Special Agent Poindexter. It's like good thinking Poindexter. It's like, oh buddy, I'm sorry.
Well, no, but that's just an old school name. Like and that made sense because I mean, in his essence, he is just an old school just psychopath. And it works for him because I could see that maybe he was getting tormented like that as a kid or something. And,
that's a name you're gonna get picked
and that was
for.
enough that he was gonna just like get more crazy about.
Okay, when you put it like that, yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, and the only other issue I had is, okay, if Kingpin really knows the city and has everything on lock, did he not think to go check his Murdoch's dad's old gym? Like they were working out there as like his base of operations at one point, and it was like, well, wait, if you've done the homework on Matt Murdock, you know his dad. You know his dad owns a boxing gym.
That might fall under the old adage where go where they will at least expect to see you. And with as sordid as Murdoch's family history is and how much he has issue with it, I can see where maybe Fisk think, the last place he would want to be is where old family memories are.
Yeah, which, I mean, maybe. But like I said, that was nitpicking because, I mean, overall, it was just a phenomenal series.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, especially, we didn't even get into the whole Karen Page saga, who, I mean, Deborah Ann Woll did another amazing job, and especially her origin story, you really kind of see of what the character is really made of.
Yeah.
I was kind of glad they didn't do the true Born Again Karen Page, and that would have been kind of rough to watch.
It might be, but it's like I got a feeling that we might see I don't think we're going to see that anymore. Because I was going to say you might see that mixed in with like the Guardian Devil story, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Smith's story when they did Marvel Knights in the next one.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But overall, though, final thoughts on Daredevil Season 3, starting with Brad Guy.
A+.
Yeah, definitely. Just awesome.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it. If you've seen seasons 1 and 2 and haven't seen Defenders, you don't need to see Defenders to see it. They give a nice little 3-minute recap trailer right at the beginning of the thing, and because there is one little thing from Defenders that factors into this season of Daredevil, it'll show you what it is, it'll explain what it is, and you'll be all caught up. Watch it.
We have spent a lot of time this episode talking about the Defenders universe, and rightfully so, because when it's good, and it's good. When it's bad, we don't really talk about it. But when it's great and they finally nail an iconic story to the letter and just get every kind of emotion out of you, this is how TV is great, and this is why we are such big fans of the Defenders universe. But let us know what you think. Hashtag it up, ODPHEE. What's your thoughts on Daredevil Season 3? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, doing extended one-shots.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say, let's kick it off with our newcomer, John. You want to say what's your one shot for this week?
Well, coming up a week from tomorrow, the October 30th, the limited edition release of the Batman animated series comes out.
Ooh.
I am extremely excited for that. I already have it pre-ordered.
Smart man.
I was going
Smart
to
man.
say, John.
Stop drooling over there, Josh.
Yeah, John was down at the panel with us at New York Comic Con. Can you describe the experience there?
Well, it was awesome because I didn't quite grow up watching the series, but I saw enough of it on reruns and just caught some of it on Amazon Prime to see the voice actors that, like, from the iconic Kevin Conroy to, you know, just everyone who voiced those characters I knew growing up was awesome. That's when I actually pre-ordered the limited edition, was while we were sitting in the panel.
I was just about to ask you that. I was like, did you whip out your phone in the middle of the panel and pre-order it there on the spot?
He did. I was sitting next to him,
Okay,
and he
okay.
showed me the button that said, proceed to check out.
I can't blame you at all.
And see, that's the effect the Comic Con has on people. Because I know this is John's first year going down with the ODPH crew, and just when you get there, it's just like, you know what, I'm sold on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
You have those moments that you're just like, screw it, we're doing it. Heat of the moment, carpe diem.
yes, so definitely make sure keep an eye out for that. I mean, Batman the Animated Series is so like to try putting into words is tough. It's just one of those.
You have to experience it.
Yeah, one great experience that you just need to, if you really want to see how true animation can just really just redefine a character, because for a lot of people, Kevin Conroy is their Batman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Even me, it's like, I love the Christian Bale movies. I will say he's my favorite live action Batman. I like the first Tim Burton movie with Michael Keaton, and Ben Affleck's not bad, but it's like, no, I read the comics, it's Kevin Conroy's voice and Mark Hamill as the Joker. No debate.
Fair enough. Brad Guy, what's your one shot this week?
Well, mine is also coming out. It's on the way, a little ways out. On Halloween Day, this October 31st on a Wednesday, we will have a one shot from Scott Snyder and artist Jacques of Witches to lead into their next volume of the Witches comic series. If you're reading my blog, that was the first thing I ever reviewed on that blog. It is a horror comic that it's really hard to get into without spoiling it, but I will recommend it to everybody. I'm actually going to give a copy of it to Horror Zone 607, Mike Ciatoli.
Shout out to the Horror Zone 607. They are doing their second episode this week on the Three Fat Nerds podcast network. If you check out our social media, we're definitely sharing those links, so check them out.
I will recommend it if you are a fan of Stephen King, Stranger Things. In fact, Stranger Things is kind of like, after I saw, I'm like, man, I really want to I want to read like some horror comics and Stephen King stuff. And this was short, and then we went to Comic-Con, and Ken M was like, yeah, I heard that Witches comic there on that table's pretty good. I'm like, okay, sold. I just met Scott Snyder, so let's get another one of his books. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know me. I sing the praises of Scott Snyder every week, so enough said. Pad, what you got for your one shot?
Well, coming out this Friday, the highly anticipated sequel to Red Dead Redemption 1 is coming out, Red Dead Redemption 2. I cannot put into words how excited I am for this to finally happen. If you have not played the first one, I highly recommend you go play it. If you have an Xbox 360, pick it up. If you have an Xbox One, if I'm not mistaken, it is backwards compatible on the Xbox One, so you can pick up a copy of the 360 game and play it on your One. Go play it. It is one of the most visually stunning games for its time. Even all these years later, it is still visually stunning. The level of detail they put into it then is stunning. The level of detail I'm seeing from the photos and gameplay from now is incredible. Arguably, it's going to be game of the year, game of the decade. It's going to be one of those games that, like, you talk to gamers and talk about, you know, the Portals and Mega Mans and Marios. It's going to be up in that conversation.
Red Dead Redemption has got a big legacy to live up to, so hopefully the sequel knocks it out of the park. I think it will. I mean, I'm not as big as a fan of it as you are, Pad, but we're definitely going to hear your review on it next week's show.
Yep.
I would imagine if you come to it, unless you're still playing the game. There's a 50-50 chance of that.
Yeah.
We might have to call him on the show just to verify that. It's like, you are still alive, right? Like, this game didn't just throw you
I'll
into
be
a
speaking
nerd
Old
coma.
Western.
Yeah. So we might have an entirely different show next week, so stay tuned for that. So my one shots, I got 1.5, I should say. As we are recording, Legends of Tomorrow comes back on the CW.
Yes. And we
So-
got Constantine joining the team this season.
Yes, and Constantine's animated film just came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it did.
Ooh.
That came out the week after Comic-Con. I have yet to watch it, but it's on my to-do list.
Yes, so it's going to be a big month for John Constantine. Perfect timing with October, being the scariest month of the year. And as, we think of Legends of Tomorrow. I mean, it's American Doctor Who at its finest. and you mix in the DCU involved, and you got a winning show. And it has the best character on the show, or on all the shows, I would argue, Sarah Lance,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
without question. So definitely check it out, 9 p.m. on the CW or wherever you watch the CW. And my other one I had, because I've had some people ask me about the show, so I figure I'd just kind of sum up Titans on the DC universe.
Okay.
Now, there was a lot of speculation when everybody heard the infamous F Batman line,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
first trailer was not good. It's not bad as you would think.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's bad at all. I think it's actually pretty decent.
From how you've described it, and we'll obviously tell our viewers, I'm honestly looking forward to it, and I hope the DC streaming service has easier means of watching it.
Yes, I mean, so far they are not on the Microsoft network, and they're not on the Sony PlayStation network, to my knowledge. It's pretty much on Roku, Chromecast, Apple TV, and mobile devices.
PlayStation Network is what I'm waiting for.
Yeah.
And I will definitely subscribe right to it.
Yes, because, I mean, overall the service has been great. It does have Batman the Animated Series on it, so I do catch an episode here and there. But Titans was definitely something that, when it came out, I was like, I really don't know what I think about it. 2 episodes in, I'm definitely intrigued. The easiest way to describe it is they're taking a lot of the classic Marv Wolfman, George Perez run and basically mixing it with the Rob Liefeld Extreme Studios action sequences of the very, very ultra violence, putting it together and kind of seeing what they get out of it. Certain scenes are like a little more like, whoa, this is not what you see on Arrow. This is not what you see on The Flash. This is a little more like in your face. But Titans overall, I mean, they're really centered a lot around a teenage Raven. Dick Grayson is in Detroit, and they have not really explained why he's left Batman other than there is some bad blood in between.
Did he go there to become RoboCop?
Ironically, they have not said anything about that yet, but it still remains to be seen because he is fighting people like RoboCop.
Hashtag RoboCop is Robin. Make it happen, people.
Pretty much, because he's fighting criminals like Jason Todd Red Hood.
Oh.
And he's being very violent about it.
Okay.
But he also kind of gets entwined with Raven and her story where her powers are acting up. People are trying to kill her, so he's trying to save her. And then they're kind of just traveling to just kind of to get a game plan. He's calling old allies of Hawk and Dove. Meanwhile, the best character on the show so far has been Starfire, and she's on the other side of the Earth. She's in Austria, if I'm not mistaken, and has amnesia and is trying to piece back, or either that or she's conning everybody she's doing. Because honestly, I couldn't tell. But I'm not meaning this in a bad sense. It was so well done that she basically goes back to where she was told that she was originally found in the hotel, and she's like fighting crime bosses, kills everybody in the room, and then just basically finds a picture of Raven, and somehow something clicks in, so now she's on her way to find Raven as well.
Oh, okay.
They haven't really touched upon Beast Boy, which I'm actually kind of surprised that he's not a part of Doom Patrol, and Cyborg is. Like, it's kind of weird that they don't have those intertwining. But like I said, this is not Teen Titans. This is known as Titans because the amount of violence going on, definitely you won't see this on Cartoon Network anytime soon.
Which, random shout out, if you guys want a good Titans comic to read, I highly recommend Dan Abnett's Titans Rebirth. That is a very good run to get into if you're looking for more of the Titans feel.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And like I said, I always recommend the Wolfman Perez run, Judas Contract. I mean, it's just old school classic writing.
Yeah, Dan Abnett's run, the Titans is not the Teen Titans anymore. There is a Teen Titans show or comic going on. The Titans run is the original Teen Titans growing up, so it's got Nightwing, it's got Arsenal. It's pretty good. Well, I don't know if it still has Arsenal based on Heroes in Crisis, but that's another story.
Yeah, it's another story entirely. But with the show in its general, though, I mean, it's kind of centered around people are trying to kill Raven, and Robin gets involved with Hawk and Dove, who are like a very extreme duo. There's some history there that you don't see coming, and basically how the episode 2 ends, somebody is allegedly killed. There is a surprise, like part of this cult that's going after them. That's, I guess, trying to stop Raven. What you won't see coming is like basically messing up everybody in shop. So I don't want to go spoiling too much about it. Just it's not as bad as you originally would think. I would give it a shot. The only thing that I thought was a little much is the ultra violence that was going on with it, because it really felt like I was watching Red Hood instead of Dick Grayson.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's one infamous scene in episode 2 that I'm going, you know what? Dick Grayson would never do that.
Yeah.
Ever. Jason Todd, oh yeah, fully believe that, without question. But this was one I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, and they're kind of dealing with more like a realistic approach to it. Almost, I want to say like how the Christopher Nolan Batman was to a degree, because as you see Hawk, he's beat up, he's injecting himself with pain pills and like all types of pain medicine, and you kind of just see like how he's wearing the scars emotionally and physically from the years of battle. So it's really interesting how they're playing it up. So I would say if you got the chance to watch it, definitely check out Titans. Let me know what you think. Like I said, 2 episodes in, I think it's very good. I mean, I want to see where it's going to go before I make my final call, but it's definitely not as bad as the whole F-Batman trailer came out. So I can't even get into that. That's all we got for this week. So for... I don't even want to say your aliases because I'm going to run out and we'll just say John Guy Signal.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Brad Guy Signal.
I'll be back.
Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We'll see you next time.